He sat alone while everyone else got matched. No friend. No ping. No notification. Just a broken boy holding hands with silence. Until the dog came limping down the alley. Unwanted. Unscanned. And just like him, Part 1 something the code forgot. The children all had someone by lunchtime. Little screens blinked and chimed across the cafeteria of Longfellow Elementary, lighting up eager faces like Christmas morning. Friends were being assigned digitally, cleanly, efficiently by a new app called FriendSync Junior, a pilot program, the principal said. Revolutionary. The district promised. Every student would get a perfect match based on behavioral profiles. Family data. Voice tone. Even playground footage. A friend for everyone. Except for Tyrese Carter. He stared at the blank screen of the school-issued tablet on the tray in front of him. A soft chime, false hope, then a spinning blue circle. Then nothing. Again. He pressed refresh. Again. Nothing. No match found. No match recommended. He did not even rate a glitch alert. Just silence. Tyrese Carter was 8 years old. He had honey dark skin, a bottom lip that curled inward when he was nervous, and shoes with soles peeling like bark. He was smart, kind, observant but quiet. Not quiet like the shy girl 2 tables over, who still got paired. Quiet like someone the algorithm skipped. Quiet like someone it did not bother to see. The school counselor, Voss, told him maybe it was just taking time to upload fully. But he could see it in her eyes, the tap of her pen against her clipboard. The quick nod to the rep. The app had decided something. And whatever it was, it left him out. He slipped away at recess. No one noticed. It was the alley behind the old corner store, where he first saw the dog. Not in full view at first. Just a shadow shifting behind a dumpster. Then a sniff. A scrape of paw on gravel. Tyrese crouched down low, quiet as breath. The dog limped into sight, rib thin, patches of matted fur, and one ear chewed down to a stub. It had the look of something that used to be loved, maybe even coddled. There was a pink collar, faded and half-torn, with a dangling silver heart tag shaped like a pixel. A digital pet tag, the kind that connected to your phone. Tyrese reached into his pocket and found the little flashlight keychain his granddad had given him before he passed. He clicked it on, just enough to get a better look. The dog blinked against the light but did not move. He was golden underneath the grime. Maybe a mutt, maybe part retriever, maybe part shepherd. There was something noble buried under the street-beaten frame. One of his front legs did not sit right when he stood, and his eyes, they were the thing that hurt most. Wide, brown, waiting, like he still half expected someone to call his name. "You hungry?" Tyrese whispered. He had half a peanut butter sandwich in his coat pocket. The dog sniffed the air and crept closer. Not fast. Careful, like someone who'd been hit before. Tyrese placed the sandwich on the ground and backed up. The dog devoured it in 3 bites. Then he sat down. Not afraid. Not ready to leave either. Tyrese did not touch him. Just sat beside him in the alley while the wind rustled bits of paper around their feet. He did not know the dog's name, but somehow it did not matter yet. They understood something. Neither one of them was picked. The next day, Tyrese brought bits of chicken in a napkin. The dog was waiting. He was not limping as badly now. Tyrese noticed the pink tag on the collar had writing etched into it, partly rubbed off. Pull trademark Series 2 sync to Home A. There was a phone number. but the idea of calling it made something cold knot up in his belly. The kind of knot you get when you know the answer might make you cry. Instead, he sat beside the dog again and told him about FriendSync, how everyone had a partner now, even the boy who used to eat glue and call people buttface. But not him. The dog did not move. He just lowered his head into Tyree's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. By the end of the week, Tyrese was going to the alley every day. He brought scraps when he could. Chicken bones. Cheese from his sandwich. Once, an oatmeal cookie he had not meant to share but did anyway. He started calling the dog Blink because his eyes flickered so fast when he slept, like he was dreaming in full color. Tyrese talked more with Blink than with any human at school. He told him about how his mom was tired all the time, working night shifts at the plant, how she used to braid his hair in the mornings, but now just handed him a comb and told him to try his best. He told Blink how his dad used to say boys do not need friends. They make their own, before he walked out and proved he did not mean it. Blink listened to every word, not with nods, not with tech, just with warmth, the kind that pressed into your ribs and stayed there, even after you walked away. It was on the 8th day that Tyrese brought the dog a name. Not a made-up one, the real one. He would look up the number from the collar at the library after school. It was linked to a purchase profile someone named Everett Harwin in nearby Coral Springs. The receipt showed a family pack of SmartPet home integration tools, with a note, returning live dog to shelter once Pexlpol is charged and operational. Some does not need both. Tyrese had to sit down after reading that the dog had been traded for something with silicone fur and replaceable batteries. He found a picture, one posted months ago, still cached on a public feed. It showed Blink clean, young, wearing the same collar, and a little boy holding a robotic puppy with glowing eyes. The caption read, "Pixel is finally home. No more accidents or allergies." Ash Smart Pet Leaf. Tyrese did not cry. He printed out the picture, folded it, and carried it with him. That day, he did not go straight to the alley. He stopped at the shelter first. They did not have a record of a dog like Blink, nothing matching his markings or injuries. Probably dumped, the receptionist said, somewhere far from Coral Springs. Some folks drive hours. She added, they do not want the kids to see. Makes them feel less guilty. I guess. When Tyrese finally got to the alley, Blink was waiting, tail thumping, eyes bright. Tyrese sat beside him, unfolded the photo, and placed it gently on the pavement. Blink sniffed it, then pawed at it once, and looked away. Tyrese reached for the old flashlight in his pocket. He clicked it once, twice. I see you, he whispered. Blink rested his head in Tyrese's lap again. But then came the sound of tires, a soft, slow engine roll, a car stopping just beyond the alley mouth. A man's voice called out low, hesitant, "Tyrese, that you?" He froze, because that was not his mom, and he had not told anyone about Blink. The voice called again, this time firmer. "Your teacher said you might come back here. We need to talk about the dog." Tyrese's fingers curled around the flashlight. Blink did not move, but something in his eyes changed. Something that knew what it was to be left behind. Part 2 scanned and forgotten. Tyrese did not move. The voice at the mouth of the alley sounded polite, but there was something underneath it. The practiced calm grown-ups use when they think you are about to bolt. Like the nurse right before a shot, or a stranger trying to coax a dog into a car. The man stepped forward into the fading daylight. He wore a button-up shirt tucked too tightly into khakis. His hands were raised like he was trying not to scare a bird. "You are Tyrese Carter, right? I am from the district." He forced a smile. "The school counselor said you have been spending time with that dog." Tyrese shifted his body. Protective, so Blink was partly shielded behind him. "His name is Blink," Tyrese said, barely louder than a whisper. The man's smile twitched. "Right?" Blink. Blink, for his part, did not growl or flinch. He stood now, steady on 3 good legs, one paw slightly raised but no longer tucked. He stared straight at the man like he was scanning him back. The man crouched carefully. "We had a report about a stray. Some of the app's parental filters flagged concern. We are just here to make sure everything's okay." Tyrese blinked. "The app sent you?" "Well," the man hedged, "the app noticed a pattern in your data. Location logs, proximity to school property, deviations in routine, and social disconnection indicators." Tyrese's fingers clenched tighter around the flashlight in his pocket. "You mean because I do not have a friend match?" The man hesitated. "I mean," Tyrese said, louder now, "because it did not see me." Blink stepped closer to him, shoulder brushing against his side. The man's smile faltered. "Look, kid, it is not personal. It is just machine learning. Sometimes the model misses a few outliers. That is what beta testing is for." "Outliers?" That word made Tyrese's stomach churn. "I'm not a test." "I know," the man said quickly. "That is why we are here. To help. If the app's not working, we find a way to fix the problem. Reintegrate you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small scanner flat. Silver, no bigger than a credit card. "We just need to run a quick id on the dog. See if he has got a chip." Tyrese took a step back. "So you can take him only if he is unregistered or reported missing. Which, from what we can tell, he might be." Tyrese's voice cracked. "He was missing, but not anymore." The man straightened. "Tyrese, if this animal belongs to someone else, it is not fair to keep him." Tyrese reached into his backpack and pulled out the folded printout, the photo of Blink, bright-eyed and clean, next to a boy holding a glowing-eyed robot. He shoved it at the man's chest. They replaced him. The man stared at the photo. "I looked it up," Tyrese added, voice shaking. "The receipt, the note. They said they were going to return him, but they did not. They just dumped him." The alley went quiet except for the distant hum of a street lamp warming up. "I see," the man said finally, his voice lower now. "That complicates things." Tyrese nodded once. "So do not scan him. I am supposed to." "Please." The man looked at the dog. Blink looked back, unmoving. Then the scanner disappeared back into the man's pocket. "I am going to pretend I did not bring it." Tyrese let out a breath he did not know he would been holding. "But," the man continued, "he is not safe out here. You know that." Tyrese looked down. "I know. Do you have a place for him? Anyone who could take him in?" Tyrese shook his head. "Not really." The man sighed. "Well, I can just leave you both in an alley." He crouched again, closer this time, and this time Blink did not flinch. What if I could help you find somewhere, not a shelter, a real place, with a fence, a yard, and someone who actually gives a damn? Tyrese narrowed his eyes. Why would you do that? The man smiled, this time less forced. Because I grew up in foster care. And once a mutt saved my life. And because FriendSync did not match me either. Tyrese blinked. Name's Aaron Delgo, the man said, offering a hand. I help with program ethics. Usually from a computer, but sometimes the numbers do not tell the truth. Tyrese shook his hand. The numbers did not tell mine. Aaron nodded slowly. Yeah. I figured. That night, Blink curled up in Tyrese's room on a pile of old towels. Tyrese had begged his mom. Begged like he had not since second grade, when she almost missed his school play. He showed her the printout, told her everything. She stood silent for a long time, arms crossed, exhausted eyes scanning the story like it was too big to hold. But in the end, she looked at Blink, at Tyrese's hand shaking as he spoke, and said, "We will make space." They did not have much. 2 rooms. Thin walls. A fridge that made clicking sounds at night. But space is not always square footage. Sometimes it is what you make inside the people you love. By the next morning, Blink had already found his way onto Tyrese's blanket. His tail thumped once, twice, when Tyrese stirred, then settled again with a groan. Outside, the sky was orange with early sun. And inside, something small but strong had shifted. Tyrese did not check his tablet that morning. He did not need to. FriendSync could keep spinning and syncing and sorting, because Blink had already chosen him. But school does not like what it can T-track. At lunch, Voss pulled Tyrese aside. "There has been a concern," she said, folding her arms too tightly across her chest. "You have been removed from the app's active users." Tyrese frowned. "I did not do anything. The system thinks you are no longer eligible for matching, because you rejected a peer outreach." "I did not reject anyone. The system thinks you did." He stared at her. "But that is not true." Voss exhaled. "Sometimes, the system makes decisions based on patterns, and once it makes them, they are hard to override." Tyrese swallowed. "So I just do not get a friend now?" She did not answer. She just offered a small smile, the kind that does not reach the eyes, and walked away. That night, Blink found something in the alley. A toy. Or what used to be one. A robotic dog, plastic legs. Cracked screen. Still faintly glowing blue. Tyrese stared at it, then at Blink. Blink nudged the thing once. Sniffed it, then turned his back and walked away. It whirred. Played a chime. "Hello. Friend. Let us play." But no one answered. Tyrese picked it up and dropped it gently into the trash. Then he followed Blink home. Part 3 offline and unbroken. The next morning, Tyrese walked to school with Blink. Not all the way his mom had been clear about that. "1 block," she would said, pulling on her work shoes. "And if I get one phone call from the principal, he is staying home next time." So Blink walked him to the corner of Maple and 6, where the sidewalks grew narrow and the trees stopped trying. Tyrese crouched down before the crossing light changed. "You can follow me past here." "Okay," he said softly. Blink sat, tail sweeping gently across the grit. His eyes were steady, but something in them clung. "I will be back by 3. Promise." Tyrese patted his side twice, then jogged across the street. He turned to wave. Blink was still there, sitting like a statue made of sun and mud and scars. Waiting, but school was colder now. Not just because of the weather. It had gotten into the other kids the way word spread fast, without anyone ever saying anything out loud. He could feel the space around him stretching, like an invisible fence had gone up and no one was crossing it. They would seen the app flag. They knew what it meant. Tyrese Carter had been removed from FriendSync. No more profile. No more pings. No more cafeteria suggestions. He was in the code's language. Non-participatory, which might as well have meant invisible. At lunch, he sat alone on the blacktop under the faded mural of Martin Luther King Jr. The other kids sat in pairs or trios, still buzzing from their app-generated friend goals of the week. Tyrese picked at his sandwich. Blink would love the crusts. He tucked them into a napkin for later. He did not notice someone had sat down beside him until he heard a plastic bottle clack against the pavement. He looked up. A girl. Short, round-cheeked, and wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big. "I like your dog," she said, not looking at him, just straight ahead, like she was watching clouds he could not see. "He is not mine," Tyrese said. "He picked me." She grinned without turning her head. "That is the best kind." They sat in silence for a moment. "I'm a," she said finally. Tyrese. "App did not match me either," she said, sipping from the bottle. "Said I was too volatile. Whatever that means." Tyrese blinked. "You too?" Maeve nodded. "My dad says algorithms are just guesses with better prayer." Tyrese snorted. He liked that. She glanced sideways. "You gonna sit here again tomorrow?" Tyrese shrugged. "You." She nodded once. "Probably." That afternoon, Blink was waiting at the corner. Tail thump. Whine. Lick to the hand. Tyrese grinned so wide his cheeks hurt. He handed Blink the sandwich crusts. Blink took them gently, then nudged his backpack like he wanted to know everything. Tyrese crouched in the shade of a parked truck and whispered about Maeve, about how they sat in silence and it felt okay, about her dad's joke, about the way she said me too like it mattered. Blink listened, then gently pressed his head into Tyrese's chest. And in that moment, Tyrese realized something. The algorithm had missed something bigger than him. It had missed what it could not measure. Later that night, Tyrese and his mom sat on the floor in front of the space heater. She was rubbing lotion onto her hands, the kind that smelled faintly of lemons and hope. He asked, "What is an algorithm?" "Really?" She leaned her head back against the wall. "It is math and guesses and instructions, kind of like a recipe, but for a machine-s brain. Can it learn?" She nodded. "That is the point. The more it sees, the smarter it gets. But what if it does not see everything?" His mother stopped rubbing for a second. She looked at him, really looked, and something flickered across her face. "It is still learning," she said gently, "and some things can be taught by numbers." She glanced toward the hallway, where Blink's tail could be seen flopping lazily against the door frame. "That dog knows more about you than 1,000 apps ever will." Tyrese smiled. Then his mom added, "But you know they won't let you keep him forever, right?" He froze. "They will come looking." Someone's always watching, baby. Especially now. Tyrese said nothing, but his heart began to pound like a drum made of glass. 2 days later, it happened. A white van pulled up after school. Unmarked. Unofficial, but efficient in its movements. Aaron Delgo stepped out. He waved to Tyrese, then crouched and called softly, "Blink." Blink tensed. Didn't he run? Didn't he wag? Tyrese froze. "What is going on?" he asked. Walking over, Aaron did not smile this time. "There is a team from the Pet Tech Board," he said. They flagged Blink's tag, a still property of the Coral Springs Smart Home Beta Test Group. They want him back. Tyrese stepped in front of Blink. "He is not property." "I know," Aaron said, "but they do not care." Tyrese's eyes burned. They left him. Dumped him. That should matter. Aaron's voice cracked. "It should. But the law does not see it that way." "Then the law's wrong." Aaron did not argue. He stood and rubbed his face. "I bought you time. I really did. But they are sending someone tomorrow." "Officially." Blink nuzzled Tyrese's elbow. "And if we do not give him up?" Tyrese asked. Aaron hesitated. "Then he will be taken." Silence. Street sounds blurred into a dull roar. Then Tyrese said, quiet but certain, "We are not letting them take him." Aaron nodded. Solemn. "I figured you would say that." He handed Tyrese a small paper envelope. "What is this?" "A contact. A woman I know. She fosters dogs. Keeps things off record. If you need to disappear him." Tyrese took it. But inside, his chest felt like it was caving in. Disappear him. As if he were something shameful. As if love was not reason enough. That night, Blink lay curled beside Tyrese's bed. Tyrese did not sleep. He lay awake. Flashlight off, tracing the beam with his thumb like it was a compass. He reached into his drawer and pulled out the folded photo again. The one where Blink stood next to a boy with a robotic pet. The boy had smiled wide, but Blink had not. Tyrese stared at the picture for a long time. Then slowly, carefully, he tore it in half. Blink's half, he tucked under his pillow. The other, he dropped in the trash, because the world might see Blink as property. But Tyrese saw him as proof. Proof that connection real. Stubborn, loyal connection was not programmable. And they would have to fight to keep it. Part 4. What the data could hold. Tyrese did not eat breakfast. His mom slid a piece of toast onto a napkin and tucked it into his backpack anyway. "Eat it later," she said, trying to sound casual. "You will need your strength." They both knew why. Blink waited by the door like he always did, tail thumping soft on the worn rug. He did not know yet, not really, but dogs have a way of sensing what is coming before it comes. Tyrese knelt down, wrapped his arms around Blink's neck, and pressed his face into the scruff. "We're gonna fix this," he whispered. Blink licked the side of his jaw, warm and slow. "I want to let them take you." It was colder than usual on the walk to school. The sun was out, but it did not touch him. Tyrese stood at the corner where Blink usually turned back. Today, Blink did not move, just stared at him. "Go home." Blink did not flinch. I mean it. Still nothing. Finally, Tyrese pointed toward the house and raised his voice. Blink lowered his head and turned. He did not run. He walked slow, deliberate, like each step hurt worse than the limp. Tyrese waited until he disappeared behind the fence. Then he wiped his eyes and headed toward school. At lunch, Maeve was not at the wall. Her hoodie lay folded over a bench, but she was gone. Tyrese sat down anyway. He looked out across the playground, kids shouting, laughing, high-fiving their matched buddies. He pulled the toast from his bag and took one bite. Then stopped. He could almost hear Blink's soft panting, feel the weight of him resting against his knee. But that weight was gone, and by the time the bell rang, something in Tyrese had gone with it. Back home, Blink was gone. Not the gone where a dog's out chasing squirrels or sniffing garbage cans. Gone. Gone. No leash. No collar. No scratch at the door. Just an eerie silence and the paper envelope Aaron had given them, sitting on the table with a single word written on it in blue pen. Sorry. Tyrese stared at it, then tore it in half, then tore it again, and again. His mom stood behind him, arms folded. I did not know, she said softly. I thought he was in your room. Tyrese did not answer, because he already knew. Someone had come early. That night, Tyrese could not sleep. The flashlight clicked on and off in his hand like a heartbeat. The photo half under his pillow was crumpled from where his head had rested on it. He clicked the flashlight again. Once. Twice. Pause. That was their rhythm. His and Blink's. He clicked it a third time. Then something outside the window moved. Tyrese bolted upright. He crept to the window, pulled the curtain back a crack. Nothing. Just shadows, wind, and leaves scuttling across the sidewalk like old paper. He sighed and turned, and found Blink sitting at the foot of his bed. Muddy, collarless, eyes wide. Blink. He dropped to the floor and wrapped both arms around the dog's neck. How? Where? Blink just leaned into him, panting hard, chest rising like he would run a marathon. Then Tyrese saw it tucked beneath the scruff of fur, tied loosely with a shoelace. A chip reader tag. Broken. Someone had tried to scan him. Blink had slipped away. Tyrese did not go to school the next day. Neither did Maeve. Instead, they met behind the thrift store, next to the dumpster that always smelled like oranges and old books. Maeve had a backpack filled with dog treats and 3 cans of wet food. I figured you would need these, she said. You know, in case you were going. Tyrese blinked. Going? She looked away. That is what I would do. He did not answer right away. Instead, he pulled the crumpled note from his hoodie pocket, the one from Aaron's envelope. He would taped it back together that morning. It had an address, a name, Miss Addie Ridge Hollow, no phone number, no instructions. Just that she takes in strays, Tyrese said quietly, the kind with stories, the kind that do not scan right. Maeve nodded. Sounds like both of you. That afternoon, Tyrese packed a bag. Flashlight. Photo. 2 peanut butter sandwiches. 1 leash. Torn. 1 soft blanket. His mom did not stop him. She stood in the hallway. arms folded, watching him zip the backpack. When he looked up, ready to explain, she simply said, "Tell Miss Addie he does not do well with thunder, and he likes scrambled eggs." He blinked. "You are letting me go." Her voice cracked. "I am letting you do what I would want someone to do for me." Ridge Hollow was 2 bus rides and a gravel road away. Tyrese walked the last mile with Blink padding quietly beside him, eyes scanning every bend. The house was not much, just wood and weeds and a rusted mailbox that leaned left like it had secrets. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Then the door opened, slow and creaky, and a small woman in overalls peered out. She had white hair tied in a handkerchief, a birthmark on her cheek, and a voice like worn leather. "You must be the boy with the dog," she said. Tyrese nodded. "He does not scan." Her lips twitched into a smile. "Good." She stepped aside. "Come in. Let us see what the algorithm forgot." Inside, the air smelled of cedar and soup. Blankets were folded neatly on every chair. Dog beds lined the hallway like little ports in a harbor. Blink walked in slowly, cautiously, then paused. A mutt with 3 legs limped out from a side room. Another dog, blind in one eye, trailed behind. They did not bark. They just nodded, in the way dogs do, like Blink had joined something older than rules, older than apps. Tyrese knelt and placed his hand on Blink's chest. "You are home now." But outside, the wind shifted. And somewhere, in a room full of code and screens and error logs, a red flag blinked. Tyrese Carter. Location unknown. Subject: unscanned. Dog. Non-compliant. Status: escalate. Part 5. The escalation protocol. In a glass building 2 towns over, the temperature never changed. The lights never flickered. The screens never blinked unless they were told to. In one corner of that building, behind an restricted door labeled Adaptive Behavior Analysis, Level 2, a red dot pulsed. It marked a data anomaly. Tyrese Carter previously indexed. Now untrackable. His digital id. Offline. His school activity. Paused. His FriendSync profile. Terminated. But the system did not like loose ends. And Tyrese's match rejection followed by proximity to a deregistered animal had triggered something else. The escalation protocol. Meanwhile, in Ridge Hollow, the air smelled of smoke and pine needles. Tyrese sat on Miss Addie's back porch, wrapped in a quilt, his shoes kicked off, his fingers buried in Blink's fur. Blink lay stretched out beside him, belly to the cool wood, tail twitching in tiny sleep spasms. Inside, Miss Addie hummed tunelessly while chopping carrots for soup. Wind chimes clicked lazily above the door. Tyrese had never felt this kind of quiet before. Not the empty kind he would known that for years. This was the other kind. The kind that held you. The kind that made room. "You've been running a long time?" Miss Addie asked when she came out with 2 chipped mugs of broth. Tyrese shrugged. "Since before I knew I was." She handed him one and sat down with a soft grunt. "That is how it starts. You think you are just tired. Then you realize you have been outrunning something you could not name." Tyrese sipped carefully. The broth tasted like time. "What about Blink?" he asked. "Will they come here?" "They might." "What'll you do?" Her mouth curved just slightly. "Depends on how polite they are." Tyrese smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Why do you say yes?" he asked. Why take us? Miss Addie tilted her head. You brought a dog who does not scan. That is like bringing a poem to a spreadsheet. She reached down and scratched Blink behind the ear. I liked that. That night, Blink would not sleep near the door. He curled tight in the hallway instead, between Tyree's sleeping bag and a laundry basket full of mismatched socks. His body blocked the passage like a living sandbag. Tyrese dreamed of searchlights and sirens, of screens filled with faces that were not his, of a voice saying, "You have been removed from the roster." The next morning, Miss Addie was on the roof. Not cleaning. Not repairing. Planting. Tyrese blinked up at her, shielding his eyes. "What are you doing?" She grinned down, making noise in a way satellites do not like. He climbed up the back ladder and saw it rows of aluminum pans tied with twine, angled to catch light and mess with low-flying surveillance drones. Paranoid? He asked. Experienced, she said. Then she handed him a bucket of screws and said, "Come on, we have got decoy signals to build." Later, while Blink dozed in a patch of sun, Tyrese opened the old photo again, the half that remained. Just Blink. Young, clean, expectant. He smoothed the crease. "I think he remembers them," he told Miss Addie, who was slicing pears for drying. "Of course he does," she said. "Dogs forget pain, but not people." Tyrese looked at her. "Why did they throw him away?" Miss Addie sighed. "Same reason they forget old songs, or delete voicemails they never listened to. It is easier." Tyrese clenched the flashlight in his hand. "I do not want to be easy to forget." Miss Addie met his eyes. "Then do not be quiet when it counts." That evening, a drone passed overhead. Not a news one, not even municipal. It was unmarked. Silent. Miss Addie did not wave. She just brought the dogs in, drew the blackout curtains, and made biscuits from scratch. "They will knock first," she said, "but only once." Tyrese swallowed. "What if I do not answer?" "Then they will scan the walls, and the doors. And you? Around 3. Tyrese heard it. A thump. Not the kind from wind. Not the creak of an old house. A deliberate, two-step thud-thud on the porch boards. Blink lifted his head before Tyrese did. Ears raised. Body tense. There was a knock. Not loud, but certain. Miss Addie opened her bedroom door and called gently. "Stay put." She went to the front. Tyrese crept to the hallway, heart punching his ribs, and peered through a crack in the paneling. The man at the door wore a black jacket with no emblem. "Madam," he said smoothly, "we are tracking a welfare concern." "You are late," Miss Addie replied, arms crossed. "Have you seen a boy Tyrese Carter anywhere nearby?" She tilted her head. "What makes you think I would tell you if I had?" "We are not law enforcement," he said. "We are optimization services, just here to gather data." "Data's got legs now?" she asked. The man smiled thinly. "You have got a dog here that does not register." "A few," she replied. "Which one are you after?" "Golden mix. Old collar. Possibly limping." Miss Addie did not flinch. "That dog does not belong to anyone anymore. It belongs to the system," he said, just like the boy. And that was the moment Blink stepped forward. From the dark, from the silence, from the shadow of the hallway, with eyes glowing not from code, but from something older. He growled once. Deep, full-bodied. The kind of sound that said, "You will not pass here." The man's jaw tightened. "We will return with authority." Miss Addie nodded. "Bring biscuits next time." She shut the door, dead-bolted it, and the house silent again felt like it was breathing. Later, as dawn broke, Tyrese sat with Blink under the kitchen table, blanket wrapped around them both. He whispered, "They are not going to stop." Blink nuzzled his hand. Tyrese clicked the flashlight once. Then again. "Then neither will we." Part 6. The boy with the broken signal. Tyrese did not go outside for 2 days. Not because Miss Addie told him to stay in, she never said that, but because the sky suddenly felt too wide, like it had eyes. Even Blink seemed quieter. He paced more, ate less, slept with his chin on Tyrese's ankle, like he had to be touching him to believe he was still there. They were still together, but they both knew the circle was closing. The knock had not been a warning. It was a test. And the next one would not knock. On the third morning, Maeve showed up. Tyrese had no idea how she would found the place. Miss Addie just called down from the roof, "You expecting company?" And there she was, standing in the gravel drive with a look that said, "Do not ask. Just listen." "I brought you something," she said. From her oversized hoodie pocket, she pulled out a tangled mess of wires, a cracked screen, and what looked like the gutted remains of a school tablet. Tyrese blinked. "You killed yours?" She grinned. "I liberated it because I figured if the algorithm can find you, maybe we can teach it what it missed." She dumped the pieces onto the table, elbowing aside a jar of dog biscuits. "I want to show it who you are." That afternoon, the three of them sat in the loft above the shed. Tyrese, Maeve, Blink. The only light came from a solar lantern strung to a beam with twine. Outside, cicadas buzzed in the dry grass. Tyrese held up the flashlight. "This is all I kept," he said. "From before." Maeve took it gently, clicked it once. "What does it mean?" "My granddad gave it to me, said if I ever got lost, I should blink it 3 times. She looked at him, and he shrugged. "Never had anyone looking." She clicked it again. "Now you do." They spent hours writing code, not real code, but the kind kids make with cardboard and heart. A map of who Tyrese was. Not the data, not the scores, not the silence, but the kid who sat with a stray dog in the cold, who folded crusts into napkins, who tore photos in half so the memory could breathe. Maeve pulled out a marker and scrawled across the broken tablet screen. Tyrese Carter scene. Miss Addie fed them soup and listened without interrupting. At one point she said, "The trouble with most systems is they are scared of what they can calculate." Tyrese nodded. "Like loyalty. Like love," she said. That night, the wind shifted again. No knock. Just a buzzing hum over the roof, a low vibration in the walls. Blink growled and backed toward the table, hackles high. Tyrese froze. Miss Addie flung open the back door and waved them out. "Out the cellar go." Maeve grabbed the flashlight. Tyrese grabbed Blink's collar. The cellar was dark and wet, lined with canning jars and old rugs and a ladder that led nowhere. Miss Addie slammed the trapdoor just as a beam of white light hit the front porch. Footsteps. More than one. A voice outside barked. Open the door. You are harboring a flagged entity. Tyrese squeezed Blink tighter. Maeve clicked the flashlight once. Twice. 3 times. Tyrese whispered, You brought them, did not you? Maeve's eyes filled. I brought them something they could not ignore. Above them, footsteps pounded across the wood. Doors opening. A crash. Shouts. Miss Addie shouting back. No one owns this child. She snapped, and that dog stopped being yours the moment you threw him away. Then louder, he found someone. You can T-scan that. In the dark, Blink began to whimper. Tyrese pressed his forehead to the dog's. It is okay. He whispered. We will find a way out. We always do. The flashlight clicked again. Then everything went silent. Too silent. They heard it next, the unmistakable thud of boots on stairs. Cellar stairs. Tyrese's breath caught. Maeve stood up, defiant. The flashlight in her hand like a weapon. A beam of artificial light swept the cellar. Then a voice spoke, not a person's voice. Not quite. Mechanical. Smooth. Friendly. Tyrese Carter. It said, Please come with us. Your re-entry program has been initialized. Blink snarled. The voice continued, You have been granted a restoration offer. We will assign appropriate social connections and re-establish placement. Tyrese stood now. Placement where? Placement optimized for? Performance. With support. Maeve shouted. You mean surveillance? The light did not move. Compliance ensures safety. Non-compliance will result in escalation. Tyrese stepped forward. And for the first time in his life, he saw the thing that had been tracking him, not a person. Not a camera, but a drone. Smooth and metallic, with a lens that blinked like an eye. I'm not yours, he said. I am not broken. He raised the flashlight. 3 clicks. The drone paused. Then the trapdoor exploded open. Miss Addie stood at the top with a shotgun. This boy has a name, she said, and so does that dog. Now get off my land. The drone retreated. So fast it was gone before she lowered the barrel. Outside, the sky had turned gold. Blink stood beside Tyrese on the porch, his chest still heaving. Maeve slumped to the steps, arms wrapped around her knees. I did not think they would come that fast, she whispered. Tyrese nodded. But you made them see me. And now? He looked at the flashlight, at Blink, then at Miss Addie, reloading birdshot with a terrifying calm. He said, We make sure they never forget. Part 7, The Archive of Unseen Things. The next morning, Miss Addie sat them down with mugs of chicory coffee and something she called Truth Toast, hearty, crusty, soaked in butter, and impossible to lie while chewing. I built this place because I knew one day it would be needed, she said, folding her napkin in half. Not just for strays with 4 legs, for the ones who slipped through the cracks the world pretends do not exist. Tyrese glanced at Blink, who was sprawled across the floor like a furry comma still, but listening. They will come back, he said. They might, Miss Addie agreed. But now you have something they do not. What is that? She leaned forward. A record. She led them to the attic. It was not what Tyrese expected. No cobwebs. No forgotten trunks. Just shelves row after row lined with notebooks, tapes, photos, and stacks of yellowed papers. Every dog who has come through here, Miss Addie said, and the person they helped, even if the world did not believe in them. Maeve reached for a battered Polaroid. A girl, maybe 12, hugging a brindled pit mix. On the back, Marisol and Bramble 2004. She stayed clean. He stayed loyal. Miss Addie pulled out a fresh notebook and handed it to Tyrese. Time to start yours. They called it the Archive of Unseen Things. Maeve made a cardboard label for the shelf. Unmatched, but not unmade. Tyrese began writing. He did not know what would happen next, whether they would get taken or chased or forgotten again, but he wanted someone. Someday, to know that Blink had been here, that he mattered. He wrote about the alley, the sandwich crusts, the flashlight. He wrote about the way Blink tilted his head when he was curious, and how his tail had a rhythm all its own. Maeve added drawings. One was of Blink lying beside Tyrese under a beam of sunlight, the flashlight glowing in his hand like a sword made of memory. Miss Addie wept when she saw it, but she did not interrupt. She simply added the notebook to the shelf and said, "Now it is real." That night, the three of them climbed the hill behind the property. Blink led the way, pausing every few feet like he wanted them to notice something: a patch of moss, a rabbit hole, the broken edge of a fence swallowed by trees. At the top, the world opened. Below, the piney wood valley curved like a forgotten bowl. A windmill creaked softly in the distance. The sky held stars you could actually see. Maeve lay on her back. "It is like the algorithm does not work up here." Tyrese clicked the flashlight once, twice, 3 times. "Maybe it does not," he said. "Maybe only sees what it thinks matters." Maeve turned her head. "And us? We are what they missed." The next morning, Miss Addie handed Tyrese a key. "Old transmitter shack," she said. "Back when radios were real and people talked instead of scanned." Tyrese blinked. "Why give it to me?" "Because if they come again, you will need a place to keep your story safe." Maeve grinned. "Are we starting a resistance?" Miss Addie did not smile. She just said, "We are starting a memory." Inside the transmitter shack, dust floated like old thoughts. Tyrese swept the floor. Maeve opened every drawer. Blink found a corner and immediately fell asleep, twitching in his dreams. They worked all afternoon, wiring what still worked and patching what did not. Maeve found an old laptop. Tyrese recharged it using a crank panel Miss Addie had bolted to the wall. They uploaded everything: the archive entries, the drawings, a video of Blink barking joyfully into the wind. They called the folder /not forgotten/. That night, the wind picked up. Miss Addie nailed boards over the windows. Not because she was scared, because she was ready. Tyrese lay awake with Blink at his feet, flashlight under his pillow, fingers curled around its base. "You are not going anywhere," he whispered. "Not without me." Blink thumped his tail once. But outside, the silence had a new edge, like it knew where to find them now. It came just after 2, a soft, the whine of electricity in the soil, light sweeping low across the grass. But this time, no van, no drone. This time, it was a person. One man. He stepped from the trees without noise, wearing grey clothes and eyes that did not blink. Miss Addy opened the door before he knocked. "We are closed," she said flatly. He held up a tablet. On the screen, Tyree's school photo hovered in pale blue light. Unmatched mail. Still unregistered. Interference with private tech property. Miss Addy did not flinch. "What do you want?" The man looked over her shoulder, straight at Tyree's, standing behind her with Blink at his side. "I want the dog." Tyree stepped forward. "He is..." The man's head tilted. Ownership not confirmed. Tyrese raised the flashlight. 3 clicks. "He chose me." The man's eyes twitched for the first time. "I will escalate," he said. Miss Addy nodded. "And we will remember." He stepped back. Didn't he argue? Didn't he threaten again? He just turned and walked into the dark. Gone. But not done. Inside, Miss Addy sat hard on the floor. "They will come back," she said. "Next time. Maybe not with a voice." Tyrese looked at Maeve. Then at the cracked tablet, now resting on the archive shelf like a ruined shrine. He said, "They are not the only ones who can escalate." Part 8 escalate the heartbeat. At 5:13, the transmitter shack clicked on. Old wires. Rusted ports. A crank-charged laptop blinking slowly to life. Tyree stared at the loading screen, his thumb brushing the flashlight resting beside the keyboard. Maeve stood behind him, hair wild from sleep, her hoodie on backward. "Are we really doing this?" she whispered. He did not turn. "We already did." From the open window, Blink watched the horizon, the first hints of sun cracking across the trees. His tail thumped once, twice, like he knew something was coming. They would uploaded everything to the hidden folder. /not forgotten/. But it was not enough anymore. They were not trying to hide. They were trying to be seen. Maeve reached into her backpack and pulled out a bundle of cables tied with a shoelace. "We plug into the ridge antenna, bounce it through the ham towers." Miss Addy mapped out. "They can bury one boy's story, but not everyone's." Tyrese nodded. The archive was not just shelves now. It was a signal. They called it the heartbeat. Maeve coded the logo herself. A flickering flashlight beam pulsing like a real-time ech, with a dog's paw print in the middle. The tagline scrolled underneath. "For those who were not scanned, but were always there." They posted it anonymously through education forums, abandoned city Wi-Fi hotspots, even as a torrent seed buried in old code libraries. The first thing they uploaded, a video, just a clip of Tyrese, sitting beside Blink in the alley months ago. No music, no filter, just a boy and a dog and a sandwich broken in two. Within 12 hours, it had 10,000 downloads. By sundown, 35,000. Miss Addy stood in the kitchen, slicing lemons like nothing had changed. Except everything had. "They're going to notice," she said calmly. Tyrese looked up from the laptop. "That is the point." Maeve added, "You always said they forget what does not scan." Miss Addy smiled without showing teeth. "I also said forgetting does not mean it did not happen." By the next morning, people had started posting their own clips. A girl in Nevada with a mute brother and a therapy mutt no app had approved. A man in Maine who kept a dog that survived 2 hurricanes and 1 divorce. A grandmother in Oklahoma who whispered, "My dog knew when I was sick. Not my smart speaker. Not my doctor. My dog." Each post tagged the same phrase. Hash. The heartbeat did. At school far away, in a place that already pretended Tyrese did not exist, the administration held a digital integrity assembly. They told students not to believe unauthorized narratives. They called it maladaptive. Sentimentality. One teacher quit that day. 2 more joined the heartbeat that night. Then the first official statement came, buried in legal language, laced with warning. The digital optimization protocol for student social-emotional health remains intact and uncorrupted. Reports of emotional misalignment or exclusion are being reviewed under the escalation clause of contracted deployment. Translation. We are watching you. Tyrese did not stop. Maeve added a counter to the site, an old-school ticker that clacked like a typewriter. Each number was a new story. By the 3rd day, it passed 100,000. They brought in a second drone. Tyrese spotted it while feeding chickens behind Miss Addie's barn. It hovered farther out, silent. Matt, hovering like a patient ghost. He walked straight toward it, Blink at his side. Maeve watched from the porch. Breath held. Tyrese raised the flashlight. Click. 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 The drone did nothing. Then it turned and left. That night, Blink would not leave Tyrese's side. He curled tighter than usual, resting his chin directly on Tyrese's chest. His body was warm, but his breath, it was slow. Too slow. Blink. Tyrese whispered. The dog did not stir. Maeve looked over from her sleeping bag. Is he okay? Tyrese nodded, but he did not mean it. He knew tired when he saw it, and Blink looked tired in his bones. Miss Addie checked him over at dawn. No fever. She murmured, but he is slowing. Tyrese's voice cracked. Is he sick? She said. He has just been waiting so long to matter again. Tyrese buried his face in Blink's neck. He is not going anywhere. Miss Addie did not argue, but her hands trembled when she folded the blanket around him. The next upload was different. Tyrese sat in the transmitter. Shaq. Blink curled beside him, head heavy in his lap. He looked straight into the camera. He did not smile. Didn't he cry? He just said, they told me I did not match, that the system could not find someone for me. But this dog did. He saw me when I was invisible. So I am putting him here, for everyone who has ever been filtered out. His name is Blink, and he is not a glitch. He leaned forward and whispered. The algorithm did not see me, but he did. He clicked the flashlight 3 times. Then he ended the recording. It spread like a flood. It reached retired teachers, discarded students, foster kids and grandparents and ex-coders who once believed in perfect systems. The heartbeat passed 1 million, and for the first time, the system stalled. The app faltered, the matching slowed. Reports came in of errors. Children receiving messages that did not make sense. One simply read, "You have been seen." But while the world finally listened, Blink's heartbeat slowed. Tyrese felt it in the middle of the night. A shift. A silence. And then the soft, final exhale of something that had held on longer than anyone expected. He did not scream. He did not move. He just sat with him until morning. Maeve found them like that boy and dog, wrapped in a blanket. The flashlight gripped between 2 hands like prayer. Miss Addie buried Blink beneath the apple tree. No chip, No collar, no data trail, just a stone marked. Blink the one who saw first. Tyrese added the last page to the archive. That afternoon, his handwriting shaky, but clear. Asterisk, some lights go out. But some keep blinking. Part 9, a light the code couldn't kill. The earth above blinks, grave stayed soft for days. Tyrese walked to the apple tree each morning and sat cross-legged beside the fresh dirt. Sometimes Maeve joined him. Sometimes she did not. But she always watched from the porch, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. They did not speak much now. Not because there was nothing to say, but because silence had become something sacred, something Blink had taught them, something that did not need translating. Miss Addie placed a tin lantern by the stone, one of the old ones with a glass pane and a handle curved like a question mark. It was not fancy, just steady. Flame-fed. Batteries fail, she said, but fire remembers. They lit it at dusk and let it burn till morning. Every night, no matter what, the heartbeat did not slow. If anything, it surged. Blink's final video, the one of Tyrese whispering, "He saw me," became a signal flare. It crossed oceans, got translated into 6 languages. A radio host in Finland read it on air. A choir in South Carolina sang it as a hymn. Tyrese stopped checking the numbers. They were not what mattered anymore. It was not about views. It was about witnesses. Back at Longfellow Elementary, the FriendSync app quietly disappeared from school tablets. No announcement. No apology. Just gone. The pilot program was discontinued due to technical limitations. But Tyrese's name never returned to the system. As far as the school records were concerned, he had dropped out, faded, removed from active list. They did not know that Maeve had made him a new school, one with no walls, and one single rule: we see each other here. Inside the transmitter shack, the laptop began to fail, the keys stuck. The screen dimmed at random, but Maeve rigged an old solar radio to play a loop of stories submitted by Heartbeat members. They called it the broadcast of the unmatched. It played 24 hours a day. One morning, Tyrese heard a woman say, "My boy could not talk, but his dog knew when he was sad. The dog always leaned against his side." Right here, the school said the dog was non-essential. But to me, the dog was speech. The next voice said, "The algorithm matched me with a robot named Kix. But I kept dreaming about the mutt we gave away when I was 7. I still remember the feel of his ears." Then silence. Then Tyrese's own voice came on, whispering, "He saw me." Maeve found him crying that day. Not big, broken sobs, just quiet tears sliding down his face, leaving clean lines through the dirt. She did not say anything, just sat beside him and passed him a page from the sketchbook, drawing of Blink mid-step, tail high, eyes forward. Alive again, at least in ink. Tyrese traced the outline. Then whispered, "We should go back." Maeve looked up. Where? To where it started. The alley. Miss Addie did not argue. She packed them sandwiches and gave them 2 screw-top jars of sweet tea. Then she tucked something into Tyrese's hand. The flashlight. Cleaned, oiled. Still working. "I replaced the bulb," she said, "but not the batteries. Those still carry his Blink Tyrese nodded once. Then they left. The alley behind the corner store looked smaller now. Less like a secret. More like a memory that had already begun to fade at the edges. Tyrese walked to the exact spot he would first seen Blink behind the dumpster, where the broken crates leaned and the wind always carried the smell of old fruit. He stood in the place where the world had not seen him, and clicked the flashlight. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing happened, and everything did. He sat down on the concrete, knees pulled to his chest. Maeve sat beside him, wordless. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small plaque. Metal. Hand stamped. She bolted it to the wall beside them with 2 tiny screws. Here sat Tyrese Carter and Blink. Me. Either matched. Both mattered. Then she stepped back and whispered, "No, nobody can say they did not see you." They walked back slow. On the bus, they sat in the last row, arms pressed together. Maeve dozed off, her head resting on his shoulder. Tyrese held the flashlight in his lap, thumb gently circling the button but never clicking it. Not yet. Back at Ridge Hollow, the lantern by Blink's grave still burned. Tyrese stood beside it for a long time. Then he knelt. He whispered, "It is still working. You started something." The wind shifted the leaves. Soft, like a tail thump in the grass. Inside, Miss Addie was making cornbread. She handed Tyrese a folded slip of paper. A printout. An email from someone named Everett Harwin, the original owner of Blink. The man who had replaced him with a robot. Tyrese read it slowly. "I saw your video. I did not know what we would done. My son still does not remember the dog's name. But it was Benny. His name was Benny." Tyrese stared at the name. It did not feel right. The Blink had been Blink. Not Benny. Not a returnable item. But something more. "I am sorry." The message ended. "If he is still with you, tell him thank you." Tyrese folded the paper and tucked it into the archive. Not to forgive, but to finish the record. He added one last sentence to the notebook. Not in black ink this time, but blue like the shimmer of Blink's collar under the sun. Even when the system failed, he did not. Then he shut the cover and turned out the light. Part 10. What remains after the Blink. By the end of fall, the leaves in Ridge Hollow turned gold, like the whole valley had caught fire quietly. Tyrese walked the perimeter each morning with the flashlight in his hand. Not because he needed it, but because it reminded him that someone once had. The Blink's grave was still fresh-looking, though the grass had started to push through in thin, brave strands. The lantern Miss Addie placed there still burned most nights. Maeve kept the wick trimmed, and Tyrese kept the promise. The heartbeat did not go viral anymore. It went deeper, into shelters, clinics, foster homes. Even schools that had abandoned the fencing pilot began quietly integrating its ethos. Not its tech, its truth. That some things can't be measured. That being seen is not a function. It is a gift. A boy in Nebraska started a club called The Unmatched. They met every Thursday and told stories their profiles never showed. A girl in Arizona taught her dog to press a button that blinked in rhythm when she said, "I see you." A retired systems engineer rebuilt her grandson's tablet, hard-coded with one entry. "You are enough. No scan required." Tyrese kept adding to the archive. Notebooks filled faster than they could shelve them. Miss Addie brought in extra crates and started calling them heart boxes. Maeve illustrated the cover of each one, always with a flashlight, always with a tail, sometimes a boy, sometimes a girl, once just a pair of muddy shoes and a paw print beside them. They never saw another drone, no more knocks, no more strangers with plastic voices and perfect teeth. Maybe the system had given up, maybe it had learned, or maybe it had just shifted targets. Either way, Tyrese no longer looked over his shoulder. He looked forward. One morning in December, a package arrived. No return address. Wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside was a simple wooden frame. And inside that frame, the full photo. Not the ripped one. Not the one with just Blink. But the original, reprinted on thick matte paper. A younger Blink, tail wagging, beside a boy holding a robotic dog that stared straight into the lens with blank eyes. But someone had written across the bottom in blue ink. He remembered. I did not. Sorry. The handwriting was shaky. Tyrese placed it on the archive shelf labeled Second Chances. Maeve left for a week over winter break. When she returned, she brought back her older brother, Liam. He did not speak, not with words. But when Blink's name came up, he tapped twice on his leg and smiled. Tyrese showed him the flashlight. Liam clicked it. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then nodded. That was all he needed. Miss Addie hosted a solstice bonfire. Tyrese wore the scarf Maeve knitted him black, with a single-stitch gold paw at the end. They invited everyone who detributed to the heartbeat within a 50-mile radius. Only 12 showed up, but it felt like 1,200. They each placed a name in the fire, not of someone they would lost, but of someone they would found. Maeve whispered hers before letting go. Tyrese. Tyrese whispered back. Blink. The flames did not roar. They hummed. That night, after the guests had gone and the stars had stitched themselves across the sky again, Tyrese walked to the apple tree. The air was still. He sat beside the stone, pulled the flashlight from his coat, and clicked it. Once. Twice. 3 times. No sound answered. No rustle of grass. No tail thump. Just quiet. Just memory. Just love. He whispered, I know you are not really gone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the last page of the newest archive entry. He read it aloud. Voice steady. You were not programmed. You were not perfect. You were not chosen by anyone but me. And that made you mine. And me. Yours. He folded the paper and slipped it under the lantern by the stone. Then sat back and watched the flame blink softly in the dark. The next morning, a letter arrived from the school board. Unsigned. No emblem. Just a single line. You were right. He mattered. No more threats. No more scans. Just 7 words that weighed more than a file ever could. Miss Addie handed Tyrese a new notebook. The pages were blank. The cover was soft. Worn leather. And on the first line, in her neat, sharp handwriting, this one S for you. Not him. He hesitated. Then he wrote, My name is Tyrese Carter. I was excluded. I was overlooked. I was categorized as unmatched. But I had a dog who found me. He paused. Then added, And now I see others. Like Maeve. Like Liam. like the girl under the bleachers, like the kid with the chewed pencils and the loud laugh. I see them all. And at the very bottom, he wrote, "The algorithm did not see me, but now I see you." He closed the notebook, stepped outside, and into the light. End of story.